Quite a few years back at my job, I was assigned an instrument, and that instrument required us to put bottles in certain positions on that instrument. And unfortunately, that instrument had an auto sampler on it that was not set up to handle the bottle size that we had. So to overcome this problem, I decided to make one out of plastic. And unfortunately back then, how I made it out of plastic was I used a bandsaw, which you can't put a straight line on it. You actually have to sit there and push it through, and you don't get a very good line on it. And then I also had to sand a lot of it by hand, wet sand it. So I watched a lot of stupid TV, you know, like Jerry Springer and all that stuff, just sitting there sanding and sanding all the edges. And then the next step that I did was then I had to buff it out. So I had to go up through the grits of the sandpaper and then finally use a buffing compound to buff it out. And unfortunately, when you use buffing compound, it gets all over the place and you have to clean up your part. So hopefully this method that I'm going to show you is going to work a lot better. This method is for acrylic. Acrylic you can get down at Home Depot. It's almost a 1/4 inch. It's about a 1/4 inch thick. You can get varying sizes, thinner. The other stuff that they sell at Home Depot is Lexan, which is more like a shatter resistant plastic. That will not work. This is way too gummy to cut. If you try and cut this in the method I'm going to show you and do the things to it and polish it, it's just not going to work. It's going to be a real pain. But it has its purpose, and it works really well to be a shatter resistant, very, very flexible plastic. Some of the things that we're going to go into, I'll show the drill bits. Believe it or not, there's special drill bits made for plastic, and we'll see the differences between there. And then there's also a table saw blade that's made for cutting plastic. And again, that's different to cut plastics than wood. It's a non-ferrous cutting blade, and I'll show you all about that too. All right, so this is a table saw blade. It says it's a fine cross-cut 60-tooth blade, and it's used for cutting wood. And when you look at it, on the side, you're going to notice that it has the little teeth brazed on all the way around it, but the teeth are all the same all the way around it, and that's for cutting wood. Works great for cutting wood, and that's what it should be used for. Plastic and non-ferrous materials, on the other hand, need a little different type of action done on them. So they have this blade. I got mine down at Home Depot, and it's called a TCG. I don't know if you can see that, a triple chip grind on it. And what that means is there's 3 different teeth that go all the way around this blade, and it has 84 teeth. So there's a lot of teeth taking a lot of small bits out. And the teeth, you'll see on here, I don't know, let me see if the camera will focus. The teeth on here are really hard to see with the camera, but if you look, you're going to see like one tooth is square, one tooth is round, one tooth is square. Well, the round tooth cuts in the middle, and these square teeth actually have one side higher than the other. So you're going to hit one side, the middle, and then the other side. And that's going to give you a lot better cut on your plastic and everything that needs to have smaller chips taken out of it. If you use a blade like this that's used for wood, it's like a big paddle coming down and just slapping the plastic, and that's not good. That's going to end up cracking it. So you definitely want to use something that's made for the application, and in this case, you know, the blade that they used for that application, that they make for that application is a blade like this. They're about $60, and it works really well. This one can cut aluminum also, and I'll demonstrate that. And they tell you not to use it for both, because obviously if you use it for aluminum, it's going to put a little dull on it, and it's not going to cut the plastic as good. Still cuts plastic okay, it just wouldn't cut it as well. But I'm not really interested in buying 2 blades for 120 bucks. So I'll just show you what it can do, and we'll go ahead and throw it on the table saw and go from there. For cutting plastic and aluminum, I go ahead and use a table saw sled. There's a lot of people that have opinions on how to make table saw sleds, so I'm not going to get into that. But the reason I do like using a table saw sled, it actually gets the part to have a square to it, so it's squared up. There's more of an area for it to be held up against. And then there's also a fine cut that's the same width as the blade. And that's important because as the blade's coming down to cut the plastic, you don't want the plastic over a large gap because it's going to bow down there and flex. And anytime you have that plastic flexing and moving, it's not good. You don't want it to bind in the blade, and you also don't want it to crack it either. So to have a really small cut through there, so that way you have a zero cut clearance, helps it cut really well too, because it will keep the vibration of the plastic down. The one modification I did to my sled that I really didn't see too many people out there, or actually I don't think I saw anybody, was put these clamps on it. And the reason why I put the clamps on it is you can see where they are. Sometimes I do small pieces. I'm not interested in putting my finger down there to hold a little tiny part and try and push it through a blade like that. That's a no-no for me. I have 10 fingers and I'm going to keep 10 fingers. So is what I do is I go ahead and I put the part in there. I can put it flush up against the back, and I just take it and I lock one side down, whichever side has the majority of it on there, and then I can hold it with my hands further out and not have an issue with it. The only thing, you know, for safety that I'd say about using table saw sleds is the one big thing you don't want to do is don't ever put your thumb back behind the line where the blade cuts through. If you happen to have the blade up high one day going down through there and you push it all the way through, you're going to catch your thumb. So always keep your hands on the side. And again, this is we're going to be cutting plastic, and whenever I cut plastic, I make sure I'm wearing a face mask on it. You don't want any of the plastic bits up into your respiratory system. And then also, of course, safety, put on your safety glasses. There's no reason to lose an eye over this.
All right, cool. Now I'm going to sound like Kenny from South Park. So anyway, it's all set up. I always take a swipe with a brush to get all the debris off of it. The last thing you want to do is have some debris under it and it rock around and give a little vibration to it, make it unstable. Get the part cleaned off. Don't ever leave anything on top of your table saw. And we'll go ahead and take a swipe and clean it off. And as you can see, I'm using my little clamp so I don't have to put my finger so close to the part, but yet it's still stabilized. Again, I'm going to wear a respirator. I don't want that stuff in my lungs for the rest of my life, causing cancer or any other problems. And then, of course, my eyes too. All right, so here it goes. I'll turn on the table saw and get that part cut out. I'm going to trim the side. I'm going to move it and cut a little bit bigger piece off. And that way we can polish it up and see how it's done with a flame polish, and maybe drill a few spots in it too to see how well the drill does. All right, I'm going to take a little bit off each end, and then that way it'll be a rectangle that each side has been exposed to the blade, and we can go ahead and clean it up from there.
That's the type of edge that it leaves on when it goes through, which is pretty good. It's pretty clean. So yeah, we'll go from there and just give it a light sanding, and we'll flame polish it, and we'll also drill some holes in it. And the other thing too is there's a film on this, and I would leave it on until you get to the point where you're flame polishing it. One, you have to take it off because it'll melt to it. And two, it allows me to write on this film with a marker or whatever to trace things out for different sizes or where I want to put a hole in it. And then it keeps it, whenever I put it down, it would scratch the plastic. So always keep your protective plastic on until you're ready to flame polish or have a final product, or else you're going to end up just putting scratches all in your piece. That's there to protect it on both sides. This is the plastic drill bit, and you can obviously see a lot higher angle on that. Let me roll it over so you can see it. So you can see has a big cutting edge on it, a higher angle, a finer tip than the normal bits that they use for, I don't know, an all-purpose bit that you would potentially go into a hardware store and find. So if you're gonna do a lot of drilling in plastic, I'd highly suggest getting a bit that's specifically made to cut plastic, because it does a lot nicer job. All right, there's one hole. And we'll do maybe one more, so we got two to look at. All right, I actually decided to go ahead and put a regular drill bit in, and I'll drill that, and we'll look at the difference when everything's said and done. So here goes. All right, looks pretty decent. And we'll go ahead and remove the protective paper and then brush it down so that way there's no particles on it to burn in when we flame torch it, to flame polish it, I'm sorry. Okay, so I'll go ahead and pull that protective layer off. Yeah, sticks to my hand from static. And there you go, that's nice and clean. Nice and clean, and you know, no problems, it's not scratched. Looks pretty good. So the drill holes, you can see these are really, the smaller ones are drilled really well. It was with the plastic bit. If you look closely at this one, you can see how it didn't go through as good and then as well, and then some of the sides of the top are not as sharp going down. So it does a lot better job to go ahead and use a bit that's actually made for plastic on plastic. You can drill it with a regular drill anyway, but you'll get a lot cleaner hole when you use a plastic drill bit. Okay, so when you flame polish your part, you can't use propane. The propane just doesn't have this quick heat as fast as MAP gas. So you have to use MAP gas. If you use propane, I guarantee you won't get the same results. I've tried it and it just won't work. So again, this is just a regular benzomatic torch from Home Depot. Just press the button and off it goes, and we'll go ahead and give this a flame polish and we'll see how it looks. So here we go. So you can see on the close-up camera that just went right to looking clear like glass. So we'll go ahead and rotate it and we'll do the other side. Same thing, polished. Go to the other side. We'll go ahead and hit that up too. And just go back and forth. And then our last edge. Get that done right there. And that is how you flame polish acrylic. So again, here's a close-up of the part. I just wanted to show it a little closer and maybe at a different camera angle so you can really get an idea of how well that cleaned up. You know, looks really good.
All right, like I said, this blade will also cut aluminum. So I put on aluminum, almost a 1/4 inch thick. But one thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna make sure that you touch off your blade with some stick wax. It's a lubricant and it'll help it go through the aluminum a little better so it doesn't bind up and go and stick to your cutting edges of your blade. So always make sure you use some type of lubricant where necessary so you don't bind your blade up. All right, here it goes. All right, again, that's impressive. That was a 1/4 inch aluminum. or just slightly under. But anyway, that blade just plowed right through that and put a really good edge on it. All right, so there's the edge on that. Look at that edge, man. That is incredible. Be able to use a table saw to cut aluminum on a table sled like that. That is great.
I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope the things that I showed will help you in your projects. I wish I knew about this a lot earlier for the projects that I had, so I wouldn't have spent so much time trying to clean up the plastic and then trying to clean up all the polishing compound off the parts as opposed to just flame polishing it. I also wish I knew I could cut aluminum a lot quicker, more square with a lot cleaner cut. So I hope that what I showed you today you could be able to do on your projects and have better looking projects that end up proceeding a lot quicker for you. If you like my video, give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to it. I plan on doing more videos and hopefully they'll help you out in your projects too. Take care.